All right, we are recording. All right, guys. So today, this video is going to be just talking about basically the history that I have in this game, like where I've played and um, different KVKs I've been a part of, and kind of my opinion on who are the best teams and the worst teams that we have faced, in my opinion. Um, like to hear what you guys got to say. We're gonna go over a bunch of teams, and we'll kind of go over all the KVKs first, and then at the end I'll go over like who do I think were the best teams that we played in terms of we'll have different categories too for just like straight up the strongest, best coordination, um, overall, most holistically who I think was the best team and stuff like that. So I don't know. This video might be kind of a dud. Maybe it'll be interesting for some people watching it. So, um, yeah. So let's get into um the KVKs. So, as if any of you guys don't know, I kind of wrote down all the KVKs just so we can go line by line. Um, so I was in season one when I actually first just downloaded this game. I saw like some ads floating around on I don't know, YouTube or Facebook or somewhere, right, on the internet. And I was like, oh, I had some experience playing Rise of Kingdoms. I'm not like a big rock head, though. I played like one or two seasons and then I quit. Um, and then I found this game, and when I started playing, I really liked it, right? And I started playing it with a buddy, an IRL friend. Some of the 69 people might remember him, but his name was I Will Punish. But he was an IRL friend, and we started playing together, and we made our own kingdom. We made our own alliance um, in Server 69. Um, and the funny thing is I didn't even know that Server 69 was like, I didn't even really think about it, right? I just kind of like clicked it, hit the newest server, joined, started playing, whatever, made my own alliance, and then I saw a bunch of teams with like 69 in their name, like for example 69HH, like Hunting Horde. So some of you guys know Beast Left. He was in my starting kingdom. He had a pre-made Discord project that he joined with. Um, um, and Wall, the team that I made with my IRL friend, was completely organic. Um, but yeah, I saw like a bunch of people with like 69 in their names, and I was like, bro, what's up with all these degenerates? Like, and then I, I found out later that it was server 69, so it was, it was kind of a little funny thing that happened, but yeah, so made a team called Wall. We ended up losing in the Dragon Zone to 69HH. Um, we I ended up taking like a week or two break. I did get Dragon rewards in this season. Back then they weren't as good as they were since well, when did they introduce like pet skills, ambers and all that shit? I don't know. But whenever Dragon back in the day really wasn't that good. Especially as like a high spender. Um, but yeah, I mean, we ended up merging, creating a COC and CNCR, and then we went into season 1 plus. I ended up taking like a 2 week break, like I was saying, and when I came back, we had this whole like council system in place, and there was a team called OG, um, not the OG that we played against in this season right here in season 2 plus, but it was a team that started in 69 that their name was OG. It was like Olympus Gods or some shit like that, and they ended up getting like they were like the worst team out of the three out of WAL and 69HH, but they ended up having like the most council seats out of everybody, and like our server just turned into an absolute degenerate server. Like I ended up so we'll get into that in the next season. I'll tell you guys what happened here. So whatever, boom, we merge. I come back after like a 2 week break. There's this whole council system that's taken over. I'm not even included, even though I was the R5 of like the number one slash two. Us and HH ended up going back and forth for one and two. We were both like a billion something power. Um, and yeah, I come back. I'm not included in this council system, which is just crazy. but I have a lot of influence in this server still at this point. And we'll get into why that's important in the next season. So, season 1 plus, um, played from COC and CNCR, like the server 69 council system we made. We ended up splitting up into two teams, but we played with AC, which is the AC that's actually still around. Um, and we played against EIS and EXG in that season. Um, yeah, so we ended up losing. EIS was just crazy. So server 69 was good too, but we ended up losing in, I think it was zone 2 to EIS, and we lost like 50 to 60% of our activity like overnight. Like once we lost that zone, it was a crazy fight, but once we lost that zone, like 60% of our players stopped logging in. It was wild. Um and yeah, so AC was like they were like the I don't know, I guess them and EXG were kind of similar, but they were maybe worse than EXG even. I don't know, maybe a little bit better. I don't know, they were so close to where. But yeah, we ended up losing this season. Um and because of just the differences in like well, activity, the fact that activity died in server 69 was a big part of it, but it was also the fact that there was some players and leadership specifically in 69 at the time that were very um, let's just say we had very different outlooks on like the way things should go in the alliance and also like just the culture, right? We'll just say that. I would join Discord calls and it would be grown men talking about just weird, very weird things. You guys can kind of not like the bros type of talk, but it was like, you know, what color did you paint your fingernails? Shit like that, right? Which is stuff that like it just wasn't for me, right? And so I ended up leaving. Um, so yeah, we ended up joining EIS. EIS was, I think, I ended up bringing like at the end of that season like 1.5 to like 2 billion power worth of players, maybe something like that, or 1 to 1.5 billion. I don't know. It was a lot of power back then. Um, yeah. So I ended up going with me and like some of the people that are still EIS to this day. I ended up messaging a bunch of people. These were mostly people from Wall. And I was like, hey, I'm going here. Do you guys want to come? Yada yada yada. Some of them were already leaving without telling me. The Thai players. Um, they were relieved when I told them that I was gonna come, but it was still kind of one of those things. But yeah, I ended up bringing a bunch of people after that, even though still. So at that point, I think EIS went into the next season at like 4 or 5 billion power, which, if you guys remember, that was, I believe, the season that TFS was formed, I want to say, at the end of that season. And they were like 7 billion power or something like that, which was the strongest in the game at the time. Um, so yeah, I basically with the players I brought from Server 69, EIS basically doubled in power. Um, so yeah, so we go into the second season 2. Um, and this is where we did a 1v5 against Myth, NXS, PXR, 50W, and like another team, right? We fought against everybody. Smoked them. They were terrible. Um, yeah, it was probably like 5, 6 billion versus like I don't know, like 20 plus, which and at that time that's like massive, and we still just smoked them. Ended up getting a really good recruitment. This was honestly probably one of our best recruitment seasons right here with me and my players coming over, but this season we also got a lot of good players as well. Um, a lot of them have either quit or moved on since then, but still really good season. Going into the next season, EIS and OG versus Tribe and SK1. I think this was the season where we finally started EIS started to get more recognized in the community. Because SK1 was like DNS. You guys all remember? I think it was server 32, right, with Chiskel server where it was like like that server was just crazy. Nobody would have been able to compete. It was like BDO and DNS, and it was just a wild server. Um, but yeah, so this is where SK1, this is where DNS ended up, and like the Tribe Zone 1 war, like a lot of people probably remember that. Um, but yeah, this was a season where I feel like we started to become kind of like our name started to get out there a little bit. Um, season 2 plus plus, everybody, if you play Call of Dragons and you're from Gen 1, you know this KVK. Even maybe Gen 2 or Gen 3, like this is probably one of the most famous KVKs in the game, and I'm not just saying that because I'm an EIS player, but the storyline of this KVK and like even to this day, like it's remember like I don't know, this is like one of the most historic KVKs because in my opinion, EIS was undefeated coming into this season. TFS was also the number one team in the game at the time, and they were also undefeated coming into this season. So it was like two undefeated teams. TFS had a big chip on their shoulder. EIS also had a big chip on their shoulder, and there was just a lot of like. I can get into this KVK more, but needless to say, this KVK was what the hell just happened? Yeah, needless to say, this KVK, everybody knows this KVK. Choke point gaming, right? We kind of set the meta for all the teams coming after. It was just everybody was abusing that choke point. Now, um, yeah, this KVK was interesting, but yeah, so going into the next season was EIS versus Row and NTS. NTS at the time was like kind of a no-name team. Everybody knows them now, but back then nobody really knew who they were. There was like I saw like a one video or something covering them where they fought like GG at a bridge or something, and they were like defending GG at like 5 billion power or something like that, and everybody was like, "Bro, this team is crazy." But yeah, this was actually the first season that EIS lost. Um, and it's also NTS. Like NTS was crazy this season. Like kudos to those guys. We still have a good relationship with NTS. They were just different this KVK. ROE not very good. Um, and we'll get into that later. But yeah, this was all NTS this season, man. And they also had like Diablo and like the what was the name of that group? Like the Ape group or something like that. Um, they ended up joining NTS like beginning of the season. All like the Merc groups, like there was like an Owl Merc group, and there was like all these Merc groups that joined ROE and NTS, and it was just kind of it was a pretty lopsided KVK. It was the first season that we lost, but overall, good fight. But NTS was the MVP of this season, man. I mean, they held drag like ROE was 15 billion power, NTS was like 7 billion, and NTS held Dragon that season. I mean, that tells you all you need to know, right? Like when do you see a 7 bill team, especially at this point in the game, holding Dragon over like their 15 billion counterpart, more than twice their power. They were just different, man. Of course, global migration comes after that. And then we have EIX and BXS, EIS and BXS versus TFS and NOR. Um, yeah, not much to say about this KVK. This KVK, despite like all the stuff around it of, Diplo win, yada yada yada, it was actually a pretty fun KVK. Um, this was technically the first season. So I'll address like some of the stuff that a lot of people like to bring up, especially if you guys are familiar with like COD General and stuff like that. This was the first season that we were quote unquote Zone 1 locked, even though we were fully built out in Zone 2, so we weren't technically Zone 1 locked. Um, but yeah, this is the season that like kind of started all that. Um, but yeah, this wasn't technically a zone one lock because we were fully built out into zone two and TFS could not push us, right? Um, Going into the next season, SOS two, it was EIS, Ancients, NA, and then BP22 versus BDO, NM57, and then there was like I don't know, there was like a bunch of other teams too. There was like G3N, ROE, um, there was a server called like SS or something like that, and they had a sub team. There's like four or five other teams here, but this was the season that everybody likes to say that EIS Diplo won. Um, Now, mind you guys, right? So let's think about this for a second, right? So everybody says it was a Diplo win because of mainly this team right here, Ancients, right? EIS at this time, we were super strong. No doubt about it. This was probably our like one of our prime seasons. This season and this season, we were like the strongest we've ever been. Um, Power wise, I mean, I don't know. We've always been pretty strong, honestly. But like power wise and how much activity we had, it was probably these two seasons, right? But Ancients, if you guys don't remember, right? So these guys were part of the TFS this season right here, TFS and Nor. Ancients was in TFS's server, right? So at the end of this season, this is when TFS left the server and started their rebuild, and it was like I don't know, like less than 50 people, right? Something like that. And they also had like a massive amount of dead weight. I mean, massive. Um, and then Ancients, after this season, Ancients started their rebuild, right? And then going into the next KVK, so this season right here was the first season that they introduced like the Paragon system in the group the team up. Ancients was a C seed in this KVK because that's really all that was in this team. They were a red server, but they only had like I think their team I don't want to misspeak, but their team was they were a C seed going to the next KVK. I want to say they were like less than 10 billion power. Um Going into this season right here, which was all they had in this season too. They had a massive dead weight problem and they were a full server, yes, but they did not have a lot of players, guys. Like keep that in mind. Like they were not some like they were like on paper they were like some 20 bill team or whatever crazy it was, but they were not. They were like half that if that. And then NA, right? NA has I have no problems with the guys in NA, but everybody knows NA has a massive downtime, right? Anybody that has played them, allied with them, they have a very big downtime. I mean, like 20 hours downtime type of stuff. So they say this is like some huge, massive Diplo win, but honestly, I think it's just copium, guys. I mean, you could tell me what you think in the chat, but in the comment section. But yeah, I think this is cope, especially when you look at this season, right? And then you look at this season right here. But we'll get to this. To call this a Diplo win and like one of the biggest Diplo wins, yada yada yada, when you got seasons like this, and also seasons that BDO has took like prior in their past. Yeah, it's is what it is. But we'll move on. Then we go into SOS 3, of course, first team up phase, KVK. This season I actually did not play too much. I kind of took a little bit of a break this season, like halfway through. So I don't even really remember what happened, honestly. I know pay to win like kick like 100 players in like zone 2 or 3. Kong had like 3 or 4 billion power migrate out like at the beginning of the KVK. BXS was already in a rebuild phase. They were like 100 players if that. So yeah, this season was even if pay to win didn't lose 100 players and Kong didn't have 4 billion, we were kind of on the back foot in this KVK anyways because Echo was very strong at the time, Rack was very strong at the time, and GG was very strong at the time. And then their fourth team, I don't even remember who they were, but They fought with Echo in Zone 2. So this season, even before this and this with Kong and P1, it was already pretty. The devs did a horrible job with the matchmaking, right? It should have been Echo versus the SSG BDO camp, and then us versus the LTS camp. I think that would have been more balanced. But instead, it was, we got this, right? And this is to no fault of any of these teams. But yeah, this KVK was pretty cooked. And I think this was the season that we got Zone 1 lock like for real. Like I think this was the season where like we were actually Zone 1 locked, the first season. Um, then the next season, EIS, NTS, A2G versus SSG, TFS, WB. Um, Another season that was winnable. I think we should have won it. The map, everybody knew that map, right? With the chokes on the bridge on the other side, it was an uphill battle, and I think this season was winnable, right? I think um, we didn't execute. There's stuff I could say about this KVK, but overall, we're gonna say we could have done better as a camp on our side, um, to get this win. But SSG was pretty crazy. TFS was strong, and WB, nothing but positive things to say about WB, man. These guys are crazy. But we'll get into that at the end. We're already going on 20 minutes. Wow. Okay, let me speed this up, guys. So this season, EIS, SSG, RAC versus Echo, BTX, RFF. Not much to say here, right? You see these two on the same side. Now, what's funny about this KVK, right? I was in the Diplo chat for this KVK. Um, I said in the Diplo chat, and I was very vocal about it after the Diplo was decided, that these two together was a Diplo win. I said it I said it in the Diplo chat with the teams on voice comms. I literally said this shit's a fucking Diplo win. Um, and I said that after the fact, and yeah, I mean people had their own memes to say about it, mainly coming from the BTX camp. Um, you know, I guess we see this season why they were happy about this matchup last season. Um, but yeah, overall, just, I mean, this right here is on par with this, and I would actually say that this one is the worst, is even worse than this, simply because in this season right here we still had a lot of fighting, right? Where this season right here, there was Elegar in Dragon Zone. Like literally, like straight up Elegards at Dragon Zone. Like it was wild. This season is probably the worst KVK I've been a part of. I was very vocal speaking out against this KVK. Um, yeah. So, and it wasn't just EIS, right? Like as far as I remember, right, this is how it was. EIS. So this is how the Diplo chat went, guys. For all you guys that might be curious about this specific KVK, right? As someone that was in the Discord, like I was in the Diplo call, right? So this is how it went, and I'm transparent with you guys. I don't have any reason to lie. If you guys have any questions, I've always have been super like anything you want to know. I'll be transparent. I'm not gonna lie to try to save face. None of this shit, right? Like I don't care that much, right? I have a job outside of this game. Um, you know, so essentially, EIS EIS, SSG, Echo, BTX, RFF. When the matchup was announced, we were all ready to go and talk about Diplo, right? Rack was not there. Rack didn't end up showing up till like way after. I want to say like I could be a little bit off on this, but I want to say like 8 hours later, right? Is when we first heard anything from Rack, right? So EIS, SSG, Echo, BTX, RFF, all in a call. We're typing back and forth. We join a voice call shortly after the matchups announced. Everybody's leadership's in here. Um, and so Echo Sod and Tempe were in the call, and essentially Sod goes, "All right, well, I think this is going to be pretty quick, easy. Let's just do Echo BTX RFF versus EIS SSG RAC. I think that makes the most sense." That's what Sod said, right? And then we were like, everybody was like looking at the numbers. We were looking at some data. People were sharing the data, and originally everybody was like, "Okay." I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right?" Everybody said that, right? And then from our side, specifically EIS, and I think there was a couple other teams too, but I don't remember, so I'm not gonna say there were. But EIS specifically, Rack was our hard counter, our hard carry this KVK, right? Because we're going up into a camp against Echo and BTX, right? And then RFF, as you guys saw from that KVK, RFF was phenomenal. They ended up taking Dragon, I'm pretty sure, in this KVK because Echo and BTX like refused to fight or some weird shit was going on. So RFF took Dragon, but RFF deserved Dragon. RFF did fantastic. They zone one locked Rack. They literally in well zone two, our hard carry, quote unquote, most power on our side, got versus a team that people in the Diplo chat, even RFF was meaning themselves, saying like RF food, saying we're weak, we shouldn't even be here. Look at their numbers, look at their T5, like they don't have anybody, they're weak. This is what was being said from like a lot of these teams in this KVK. RFF was even trolling themselves. Somehow their worst team on their side, zone one locked Rack, or zone two, push zone two, and zone two push Rack in a 1v1, push Rack all the way back to the pass. Tell me how that works, guys. But to go back, so EIS says, all right, let's wait for Rack. Let's wait for Rack to get here and see what they think, right? Rack eventually shows up like a business day later, right? And Rack's like, no, we don't want this matchup. They immediately shoot down this matchup right here, which is what was played and which was first introduced by Echo. They immediately shot this matchup down, and then we started talking about other matchups. And then the other matchup that was introduced was EIS SSG BTX versus Echo Rack RFF. Um, and those were the only two matchups that were introduced. And I want to say it was Rack that introduced that matchup. I really don't remember, guys. I don't I want to say it was Rack that introduced that matchup. Maybe it was us. Maybe it was SSG. Maybe it was someone I really don't remember, honestly. Um, but it became very apparent that Echo and BTX were not going to not work together. You know, anything they made it seem like they were open to the possibility, but it was never a possibility. I mean, it was very obvious. These two were going to work together, that KVK, no matter what, because of the map, right? That was what the excuse was, the map's fault. Um, but yeah. So yeah, this season was horrible. I had 26 million merit, or yeah, 26 million merits, the worst I've ever had since I believe season one, when I was 70 million power, or 80 million power, 90 whatever I think I was like 80 to 90 million power in season one. Yeah, this KVK, terrible, horrible. Um, anyways, going on to SOS 6. Current matchup is EIS, A2G, SHPZ, FA versus NA, Ash, OO, O5DK. We got some interesting stuff going on in this KVK. Everybody's heard YY's basically zeroed his accounts. Um, yeah, this KVK, I can make a whole separate video about this KVK. Overall, though, NA's putting up a good fight. NA's doing fine. OO is actually still deciding to fight. Ash doing a great job for a B Kingdom. O5DK doing well. SHPZ and FA doing well. A2G killing it. We're killing it. Overall, the KVK is like fine. Could be a little bit better, but after I experienced this KVK and this KVK, Uh, and even maybe this KVK, just because BDO just straight up gave up and just quit the KVK. This KVK was also super boring. After experiencing these three KVKs, this KVK is actually pretty good, guys. Um, it's actually not bad. Um, but yeah. So, damn, 30-minute video, guys. Let me know what you guys think about this. If it's like too long, maybe I rambled on for too long, whatever. But we'll go over like who do I think, and we'll go over like we're gonna go over like carry teams, right? Maybe the second team if there's like a bunch, but like who are the most like in my opinion, right? Who were the best teams that EIS has faced? As you can see, I've been a part of EIS since the end of season one plus. So I've been here for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is my 11th season with EIS. So out of the 11 seasons, I would say the most underwhelming team that we have fought is probably, you know what, let's come back to that because I want to say the best team that we fought. And just so I'll give you, we'll do three categories, right? We'll do the best team by just like straight up power, like brute force, like who was like, oh my god, these dudes are crazy. We'll do what team had the best coordination, and like best like just like okay. Sorry guys, my headset just randomly turned off for some reason. So we'll do best team by just straight up brute force power. Who do I think was the strongest? What team had the best coordination? And what team overall was just the most enjoyable slash strong fight that I have fought in EIS? So the strongest team is going to be Nor in SOS one. Not much to say. These guys were just different, bro. Out of any KVK I've played in here, at the time and like where my account was, and like just like as time progresses, obviously the ceiling will change, right? But just Nor, like prime Nor in this season, even though yeah, Nor strongest team. Um, I don't know. They went into this SOS two, and it was like them and Kong and this is like the Echo Free for All season, right? Where they fought. They were not the same team they were the season before. I'm telling you guys right now, this team was absolutely cracked. Their first season after all the hype, cracked. Very good team. Despite our differences. Um, the team with the best coordination, I would say, that we've ever fought is NTS. NTS has they've never been known as like the strongest team out there, but they have been known to like really punch above their weight. Um, and like, being the team that can be at like a big power disadvantage and still hold their own. And a lot of that's because of their ball PvP, their blinking tanks that get recalled with like Wolf. These guys just got a lot of coordination, right? Especially back then, but even throughout these seasons, right? And then overall, just the most enjoyable team to fight, is WB. Shout out to WB, man. These guys are absolutely cracked. They have a lot to be like a Gen 2 or a Gen 3 team. I don't know exactly where they come from. I know they're not Gen 1, but these guys have so much grit. Like just to be in like a losing position, because when we fought them in this season, we won Zone 2 against them, and they were in a losing position, but they just kept coming back day after day after day after day after day. Like these guys are just true fighters, man. They show nothing but respect. Just a pleasure. WB, great team. Um, One of my favorite teams. Honestly, if I wasn't in EIS, I would probably play in WB. No bullshit. Like WB is a very, very good team. Um, yeah. As far as like worst teams, um, I won't say worst because that's kind of a an honorable shout out to NF57 in this season right here. NF57 was absolutely crazy in this season. These dudes these dudes were crazy. Like they were so good. They were probably honestly they were the third best team in the KVK. They were better than Ancients and NA for sure. Ancients was like I said, Ancients was kind of like in a dead kingdom with their small group of players, but NF57 man, crazy, very good team. Um, but yeah, I would say like the most underwhelming teams that we fought would be BDO in this season. Um, I don't know, man. Like there's just so much hype around BDO, and now they've obviously merged into SSG and they have Rage now, but I mean all I don't know, man. This team is just they're good, don't get me wrong, but the way people talk about them like they're like this like god tier team, they're just not. I mean, they are just not, man. Like they were yeah. I mean, I don't understand all the hype even like around this time frame, right? When they were like really big before they merged into SSG. Yeah, just they have some very very great players in BDO, but just when I played against them in this season, I was just completely disappointed. Super surprised by them. What the hell with them? Um, I would say BTX last season underwhelming. Like watching them, watching their coordination, I knew going into this KVK when these two got matched together that Echo was going to absolutely shit stomp BTX. Um, I just from watching them last KVK, I knew even last KVK when Echo was like 4 or 5 billion power less than BTX, Echo would have still won. When they were both 30 bill, yeah, no. I mean, we saw what happened. Everybody saw what happened. Yeah. Um, I would say also like ROE in this season right here. ROE disbanded shortly after this season. Terrible team. Good players, right? Good players in their team. Leadership, terrible. Um, but yeah, I think that's gonna do it, guys. This is a 38-minute video, and there's kind of me ranting, going over the different seasons. Real quick, we'll go over. So this season right here was quote unquote a win for me, right? Because I still got Dragon. This season, even though we lost to EIS, I ended up joining. Still got Dragon here. Win, 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 loss, loss, win, loss, loss, loss. To be determined. That's kind of a breakdown of my COD journey and all the KVKs I've been a part of. I'm gonna wrap it up on that, guys. Peace.